Well, now I'm going to discuss about the variables in the Terraform. What are exactly variables and why do we require them? See, here we have created the AWS VPC successfully in our previous video. But the thing is that we are assigning the values by default. Means whatever we are creating, we are assigning by default. Let's consider there are multiple teams and every team want different values to be assigned to this particular resource. For example, the first person who is using the EC2 machine, he want his instance type to be t2.micro, and the next person want it to be t3 dot micro. And there are teams that require t2 dot medium, t2 dot extra large. Such instances you cannot create by assigning the values by default. Like here I have mentioned the CIDR block for my VPC. It is a block under which you can able to create your subnet, and using that subnet you can able to create multiple IP addresses, and where you can able to create multiple EC2 instances. And here the CIDR block, it is for one particular for one particular is a machine or one particular thing we are creating the VPC. Just consider there are a lot of teams that are working and they want resources. In such condition we use variables. There are two types of variables onto which we assign the values. I will give an example. See, here we have CIDR block and I have mentioned some values to it. So how to create a variable? See, first of all, there are two types of variable: input variable and the output variable. And input variable, where we are going to assign some values to input, CIDR block, we are going to create a variable assigning CIDR block to that, accessing that using the CIDR block. This is one thing. Output means whatever you have created, that has to be like, see, you have created resources, and some development team doesn't have access to AWS VPC to watch, or to just monitor those things. In such case it becomes difficult to access such resources. Therefore, it is required to give some output where whatever things we are creating, that must be mentioned. So in the input variables, I just mentioned variable, and here I have to mention that it is some CIDR block, and I have mentioned it is a variable name is CIDR block, and description about this one. Description is that it is a CIDR block for some VPC. We have created this one VPC, and after that thing, we have something called as a type. We need to mention the type as a string. We have different types of variables. We have the boolean, we have the list, map, number, object, a lot of things. Because it is a by default string, I am mentioning it as a string. And we have to mention the default value. Here default value, I will just take this thing, Control X, and I just paste it over here. And over here, what I can do, I can use var.cidr block. Why var? We can able to access this variable using the keyword var. When I mention dot, it is gonna access the values that are associated with the variable, like the CIDR block. If I create another variable, just consider I just copy this particular thing and I paste it over here. If I say CIDR block a, if I mention like this, and if I remove this variable, I mentioned dot, it is gonna give me two values because I created the two values. You can able to create like this, and here you can mention the CIDR block and just wait for it and come over here. As you can have a look over here, there is no VPC created in this particular area, and I will go over here. Okay, go over here, and what I can do in the variable.cidr block, because it is from the day one, I just use Terraform plan, so that it can give me the planning. What I created a proper planning, it has to give me a planning. It is created, and after that, if I mention the Terraform apply, it's gonna create that particular instance for a particular VPC for me, and AWS VPC dot example is creating, it's created. If I just reload this particular thing, we're gonna have a dedicated VPC for us with the CIDR mentioned by us, 10.0.0/16. This is how we create by the default value. And I just destroy my resources because VPC are actually costly. Destroy. Once it is destroyed, what I can do, I will just go with another file called tfvars. I'll just create a new value, terraform.tfvars. What is exactly tfvars? Rather than assigning a default value to the variables here, we can mention some values over here, like the CIDR block. Why it is giving me CIDR block? Because I have created one. If I just copy it and paste it over here, mention it as /a, and mention over here, if I create again CIDR block, it is gonna give me block A. Why? Because it is traversing from this particular main.tf and creating variables accordance with that. Because I just remove this one and I remove this particular thing. Okay, this particular thing, and under this CIDR block I am gonna assign my value. Like here I just remove this particular thing, 10.0.0.0/16. Okay, why we require a separate file for managing our variables? See, it become very easy. You don't need to mention or anything over here like a default value or anything, because you are creating one variable over here. If you create a multiple variable, going through each of section of the variable is very difficult. Rather than you can go into this particular thing. Okay, CIDR block he has mentioned it is this particular value, I'll change this particular value. It is done. It is as simple as that. And this is that why I have mentioned the default value. See, sometimes if we don't mention anything over here and we say Terraform plan, then it's not gonna execute anything. If we don't mention anything over here and there is a no default value over here, it's gonna create it will not create anything. It will give you some error block. Therefore we mentioned some default value, and this is also fine. Like we have CIDR block over here. This is a variable CIDR. When this main function goes into here, this CIDR block watches for variable.CIDR block. Variable.CIDR block, it goes over here because there is nothing over here. It will directly go and mention like it wants some value out of this tfvars, and it will get some values and it will create that one as according to that. If I mention yes, it is gonna destroy the resources. Once it is destroyed, I'm gonna use my plan again. Once the Terraform plan is executed, I can use Terraform apply. Once it is applied, as you can have a look over here, it's gonna create a new value. It's not there because I deleted the previous one. A new block will be executed, but we have to say yes. Once I mention yes, a new block will be created over there, because I haven't mentioned anything over here. Default value, it gone over TFS and created the one. And if I just reload this particular thing, you will be having a new VPC over there. See, it's as easy as like that. We have created, we have provided the providers, we have provided the variables, input variables. Now we discuss about the output variables. What exactly output variables and how do they behave? In the output variables, whatever resource you are creating, you need to mention the name over here. Like this is related to AWS VPC. Okay, then we have to mention the value equal to AWS VPC.example. Why it is like that? In the input variables, we define the variable name as CIDR block and we are accessing it. Why exactly output variables? I have previously discussed that development team doesn't know which VPC is creating. To access the important values of it, you need output. Okay, we have the output. We mentioned the AWS VPC. This is AWS VPC, the resource what we are creating, and I want the information of AWS VPC dot example. The dot example, what it is there, it is the VPC that I am creating, the name of the VPC. So when I say AWS VPC dot example, it's gonna give me the value. So I just have to destroy the previous application. Once it is destroyed, then only I can move further. I just mentioned yes over here. Okay, I just reload this particular thing. If it is removed successfully, then only I am going to go further. No VPC found in this particular region. So now what I can do, I can use the Terraform plan. Once it is done, I can use the Terraform apply. Once apply is done, you're gonna generate a new VPC and output file for it will be generated. As you can have a look over here, I just remove this particular thing. Okay, as you can have a look over here, this is the AWS VPC and values associated with it. This is the default network ACL, this is default route table and everything. See, using the output we could able to get our values, and this is about input variables and the output variables, and assigning the variables in this new file. The best method of creating variables is to create a new file. For that reason, I just create a new variable file, variables.tf, under which I am gonna remove this variable file, Control X, and I mention here Control V, and that's fine because both are in same folder. My main.tf is traversing to the variables, and over there it is picking up the value of CIDR block and it is executing accordance with that. I just remove this thing, and if I mention it over here, then also it is fine. And this is how we go with the main.tf, the variables.tf, the Terraform variables, and through which we could able to create our required VPC using input and output variables. This is all about it. Thank you.